All right, so as many of you may know, the United States attacked Iran, then quickly called things off. Now, to understand why this happened first, you must understand how your world works. You see, for the longest time, the United States was the world's only superpower, and it ruled with an iron fist, more specifically through its military. War and intimidation was the name of the game, but wars cost money. A lot of money. So this is taking a toll on the United States, and the United States is going broke. Now at the same time, other countries around the world are rising in power, specifically China, who took a different route. The United States again decided to rule through war and intimidation. China decided to rule through trade. Now to get more specific, these other countries aren't overtaking the United States, but they represent another option to the United States, and you'll see why that's important in a moment. See, the United States is trying to resist this power shift at all costs, but the United States has another problem, and that problem is nukes. Imagine the United States as a buff beach bully. He's getting older, but he can still push people around. Now, there are multiple ways to stop a bully. With our China and the other countries example, that's getting buff yourself, right? He's not gonna bother you. Another way is to get the strap, and in the world's case, is a nuke, and the military don't mean nothing to a nuke. That's why the United States hates North Korea so much. All these other countries are pretty powerful in their own right, so the United States can't like boss them around like that. So it's okay, all these other countries, y'all could have nukes. Everyone else, no nukes. North Korea said, or what? North Korea got some nukes, the United States can't touch them. Other countries said, United States said, what? New rule, from now on, if you get a nuke, nobody can talk to you. Nobody talk to North Korea. Now, it's a little more complicated than that, but all of this is enough to start talking about the Iran-United States situation. See, Iran and the United States have a very long, very complex history. Best friends, enemies, but let's just say right now, they're not in a great spot. Now enter Israel, whose goal is simply to conquer the Middle Eastern region of the world. But Israel's a very small country, so it needs some help from the United States. And for the most part, Israel colonizing the Middle East aligns with the United States goals. Because since Israel only listens to the United States, if they get strong in the Middle East, then essentially the United States gets strong in the Middle East. Does that make sense? Now, as time goes on, the United States and Israel are tag teaming to destabilize the Middle East. But even back then, the world was not stupid. Even while George Bush was president of the United States, the world said, leave the Middle East alone. George said, weapons of mass destruction. The world said, cap. George Bush said, map. Who gonna stop me? Remember, at this point, United States on top of the world. Iran said, oh, y'all must think you slick. I'm finna go get the strap, a nuke. And if y'all come to my country, I'm finna let it sing. The United States said, you better not. You remember the rule from earlier? No more nukes. Besides, nobody coming after y'all. Iran, chill. Iran said, oh, you must think we stupid. Because historically, in the Middle East, anytime the United States has said, drop your weapons, we not invading, the United States invades. So Iran said, don't talk to me, talk to the stick. We finna chase that. Enter Barack Obama, who made a landmark deal with Iran called the JCPOA. He basically said, look, Iran, the past is the past. Stop your nuclear program, and we gonna be boys. Like, we gonna be good. You good in the world again, no sanctions. Israel said, what? Obama said, anyway, Iran, we good? Iran said, you know what? We good. Just tell me where to sign. Enter Donald Trump, who said, sign what? Iran said, where's the other guy? Donald Trump said, you dealing with me now. Israel said, yeah, boy. Trump said, okay, new deal. Iran, do what I say or you finna have a problem. But remember, the world is changing, and Trump did not get the memo. Iran said, okay. But last I heard, you was broke. So we just gonna continue the nuclear program, and you gonna shut up. That seems to be our safest option. Trump said, who he talking to? All right, everybody, stop talking to Iran. China said, Bu Zhao Nan Hai. Trump said, what? He said, Bu Zhao Nan Hai. Trump said, Bu Zhao. Nah, little boy? Oh, you must think you slick. Remember, there's an alternative to the United States now. People have options, namely the BRICS, a coalition of very powerful countries that have each other's back. Not so much militarily, but more so like, don't worry if someone stops talking to you, we're all gonna keep talking to you. And many more countries continue to join the BRICS, including Iran. So Iran continuing its nuclear program and making a bunch of powerful friends shows the world, especially the Middle East, that United States intimidation doesn't work like it used to. Again, the world is changing. Israel, in an insane last-ditch effort, decides to attack Iran. Now, mind you, Iran is much more powerful than Israel. Just for reference, Israel's Jewish population is around 7 million. Iran's population is around 90 million. Population isn't everything, but let's just say Iran would wipe Israel off the face of the earth. So Israel would never attack Iran without help from the United States. So everyone knew what was coming next. Republicans, Democrats, the whole world, they look at Donald, they say, Donald, don't do it. Donald said, do what? But just for the sake of argument, why shouldn't I do what you think I'm finna do? Politicians said, Donald, if you strike Iran, you're gonna push them further away. Then you're gonna push the world away because they're gonna see that we're just bullies. We have no money. The American people see that we have no money. They can't pay for rent. If they see a war, they gonna get mad. We have no money. Also, Iran is just too powerful to do this too. They got powerful friends. Trump, don't do it. Trump said. Boy, I'm not finna lie to you. I was not listening to a word you said. Boom, Donald Trump pushes the button. The United States strikes Iran. Trump's plan is to show strength. The old ways. I told you to stop your nuclear program. Now, world, you see what happens? Now, another part of the plan was probably to make the Iranian people so fearful and desperate, they changed their leader. A leader that would be more sympathetic towards the United States. This tactic has worked real well for the United States in the past, but not this time. The Iranian people simply just said no. United States, just leave us alone. Iran strikes back, but not too hard. The world cheers for Iran, including the American people. Donald Trump said, ooh, that's not good. He says, guys, I just struck their nuclear program, not like their citizens and stuff like that. I'm not a bad guy. Intel comes back. They said, Donald, we didn't really damage their nuclear program. Donald said, ooh, that's not good. Intel said, yeah. But you still got to pay the army a couple $100 million. Donald said, okay, no problem. You guys take cash or you got to take the American people's money? They said both. He messed up, a resounding failure that costs a lot of money. The United States pulls out fast, which means Israel must pull out even faster. Again, they do not want a one-on-one against Iran, but Iran doesn't want a full-on war with the United States. So they say, okay, cool, we can stop. So now Donald Trump has to save face and backtrack, saying, okay, we destroyed their nuclear program. All of this wasn't for nothing. Intel said, but we just told, Donald Trump said, they just trying to make me look bad. We destroyed the nuclear program. Also, I made peace in the Middle East. They said, Donald, Israel and Iran struck each other again, and Israel said they're going to start again later. Donald said, I made peace in the Middle East. He's just lying to cover up his mistakes. So at the end of the day, the world enters a new era, one of multiple powers instead of one overbearing power. And Israel and the United States are learning the hard way that you can never be changed. Side note, multiple powerful nations isn't always a good thing. This is what allowed Russia to invade Ukraine, China to start eyeing Taiwan, but that's a story for another day. Regardless, the saddest part about all this is people lost their lives. And I think the overwhelming consensus around the world is everyone wants to live in peace and everyone wants to allow others to live in peace. But people with power continue to use that power to gain more power. Hopefully one day we'll be better than that.